Good afternoon and welcome to the San Mateo Arboretum Society's Sunday seminar. Today's topic, organic spring and summer vegetable garden with the Putnam sisters. My name is Pat Paquette. I'm an Arboretum volunteer and education committee member. Program will last approximately 60 to 90 minutes and it will be recorded and you will get a copy in a day or two. Please hold your questions until the end of the presentation. For Zoom participants, you can submit questions at any time using the chat box at the bottom of the screen. Let's see. For in-person attendees, we request that you fill out your evaluation form, which was on your chair before you leave. The Zoom participants can do it online, and if you don't have time today, you can do it online, but we prefer if you have the time, if you could do it. A little bit of information about what's going on in the Arboretum. Our nursery is open on weekends, 12 to 3, Saturday and Sundays. We have a wide variety of plants, indoor and outdoor, and very reasonable prices. So if we finish before 3, you can head over there. The payment is only debit, credit, or Apple Pay. Cash isn't accepted. While you're in the park, check out the Rose Garden, and Sue Carter in the back there is the Rose Garden. I don't know what she's in charge of the Rose Garden, and it's beautiful. We also have a butterfly hummingbird garden and a shade and sun demonstration gardens and a fairy garden, which was just redone. These are all maintained by Arboretum volunteers. Currently, as you can see on the walls, there's an art exhibit. San Mateo High School students are the artists that are displaying their work. Yeah, there's some really nice, it's amazing. Also, yeah, so if you have time, check that out. On the back table, there's our latest newsletter with all kinds of information in it about what we're doing and what's happening. Also, if you're interested in becoming a member, there's applications. You get discounts at local nurseries, and our nursery, you get a 10% discount. So there's lots of benefits, and if you're interested in we also have tribute bricks, which if you want to do a brick for a loved one, that's something that we offer as well. Okay, moving on. You came to hear Kathleen and Lisa talk, so I'll just go on here. Okay, so Lisa has a BS in agricultural economics from UC Davis and also studied nutrition science at Davis. She currently manages a small sustainable organic farm in Woodside and Portola Valley. Lisa's passion is soil and compost. Kathleen is a professional organic vegetable gardener serving the Mid-Peninsula and is an ISA Certified Arborist. Kathleen has a certificate in Environmental Horticulture from City College of San Francisco, and both Lisa and Kathleen are master gardeners. Kathleen's passion is fruit trees and soil and cover crops. And they both have been teaching vegetable gardening and pruning techniques for approximately 16 years at Lingso, San Mateo County Fair, and local garden clubs. So I will turn it over to Kathleen and Lisa.
Thank you. Thank you, Kathleen. Okay. Well, thank you everybody for coming out. It's nice doing in person.
Yeah.
And I guess we can go ahead with the first slide. Do I do that or do you do that? There we go. Okay. So the
I have to share.
okay. The first 19 slides are on soil, and the next 10 slides are on vegetables. But it is really all about the soil. So if you don't have good soil, you're not going to be growing good vegetables. So we're going to talk about regenerative agriculture and regenerative techniques, which dovetail nicely into organic gardening. And I think we're almost there. So we'll be talking about a no-till, low-till, no-spray selective weeding, grow your own fertilizer, cover cropping, and evolution into rewilding ecological farming today.
What?
And on the screen, that's me with my hat. That's me at a little farm I have a little farm in Woodside called Mission Farm. And those are all the techniques we use. So we're a no-till regenerative gardener. I'm going to go ahead and go to the next slide. Do I need to point this to someplace in particular for it to work?
Right now.
It's the middle button.
Yeah, that's what she's getting.
Yeah. Okay, could you go to the next slide for me? Great, thanks. Oh, the formatting got messed up. It's okay. So kind of gardens have evolved over time in
Wait,
farming.
I have something to say before you get into this.
Okay,
So I read the book, What Your Food Ate.
yeah.
And this was going on in the 1930s.
Uh-huh.
Lady Eve Belfour in England was doing no-till regenerative gardening in the 1930s.
Yeah, well, I mean, honestly, since the beginning of time, that's
Yeah.
what we've been doing. It's
Yeah.
really World War II
Yeah, that changed it all.
that changed everything.
And then we had to step back and get back into.
Yeah, I mean, what we're doing and what we're teaching today is going back to gardening that was done pre-World War II.
Yeah.
Like in the 1800s.
Yeah, although they tilled.
Yeah, but not big equipment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what we're talking about is synthetic fertilizers have killed the life in your soil.
Yeah.
And what our method is doing is putting the life and the carbon back in your soil, and that life in your soil will take care of the plant.
Yeah. So kind of the evolution of gardening in the 70s, maybe some of you follow Elliot Coleman. He was kind of, and he's still alive. I guess I'd call him kind of like the grandfather of organic gardening movement. He has evolved himself. And so he's been through the biodynamic, biointensive. And I think when she read it, she said sustainable, but now everybody's moving towards regenerative gardening, which is actually regenerating your soil instead of just kind of maintaining it. Now it's trying to make your soil better. So I'm going to go ahead and try this again. Nope. I'll let you guys do it. So these are some of our heroes that, and some of them have to do with vegetable gardening. Some of them don't have anything to do with vegetable gardening. But so Gabe Brown is a farmer in North Dakota, and he's a big deal. And Kathleen emailed him several weeks
about how to acidify the soil around my blueberries without adding sulfur, because all the research is about how much sulfur to add. And he answered me, and which is like, God talking directly to you.
like
for my world. And he just said cover crop.
Yeah.
With a large variety of plants, and they will reach the right pH.
Yeah.
And they have. I was back there today looking at them, and I have berries set like
And
crazy.
they all look good. Yeah. But other people, if you just for fun, so ecological gardening doesn't have anything, well, it has a lot to do with vegetable gardening, but Rebecca McMacken, if anybody has watched her TED Talk, she took a barge in the middle of New York City and put natives onto the barge, and now she has brought back all sorts of wildlife, and it's really amazing. So anyway, these are some people that we follow. Okay. So goals for today is to move people towards regenerative agricultural vegetable gardening. My personal goal, I don't know if you guys have read Doug Tallamy's book, Bring Back Nature. It's a fantastic book. And his whole premise is if we all were planting natives in our yards, it would add up to more land than all of the national parks combined. And we can do more to bring back native insects and birds if we all would do that. My personal goal is if we were all doing regenerative organic gardening in our backyards, we could regenerate our soil. And it really helps with climate change and sequestering carbon. And so many gardeners, it's just been plugged into our heads forever. more nitrogen, more nitrogen, more nitrogen. You know, nitrogen is what makes plants grow. And it is true, nitrogen is what makes plants grow. But when you keep chasing nitrogen, whether it's organic or inorganic, you're giving that plant a crutch, and it's not fending for itself. And we'll talk about that. And you're weakening the plant, and then the nutrient density isn't as high in your fruits and vegetables that you're giving, even if it's bone meal, blood meal, alfalfa meal, that's nitrogen. And it's also leaching out into our waterways.
And the plant, if it gets, it's more likely to be attacked by insects and or pathogens, and it doesn't have the defenses it needs to protect itself.
Yeah. So you can see there, that's Mission Farm again, and the crazy growth we have. You know, my tomato plants get probably 10 to 12 feet tall and 10 to 12 feet wide. That's with zero nitrogen added. So I've been gardening there for 17 years. I haven't ever added any fertilizer, but I've cover cropped and I compost.
Any commercial fertilizer.
Yeah,
Plants are fertilizers.
Plants are fertilizer. Yeah, you're right. No outside inputs. So I don't buy anything. The only thing I buy is seeds. Okay. So the principles of regenerative ag, so it always cuts off the bottom.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, well. The first is just know your climate, know where you're gardening. It's going to be different in San Francisco than it's going to be in Redwood City. So know your microclimate, know, most important, how much sun you get. And we'll get into that. Minimize soil disturbance, which means don't till your soil. A lot of people get out there with a rototiller and think they're doing, but all you're doing is breaking up all those aggregates in the soil, and you're really, really hurting the soil by doing that. Keep your soil covered. So, and Kathleen will talk more about cover crops in a little while. Always keep your soil covered. Keep armor. It's called armor on your soil. Grow a diversity of plants. Always have at least 8 families. Don't monocrop. Don't have just corn or just tomato. Have a whole bunch of different things. Have a lot of biodiversity. And if you can, this is harder for urban environments, is integrate livestock.
Little miniature goats.
Yeah, miniature goats. I mean, I have chickens, so we give chickens our, you know, we use their poop in our fertilizer, you know, in our compost pile. So if you can integrate animals, not everybody can do that part.
And wait, on the slide where Lisa says keep your soil covered, if you don't have plants growing it, mulch.
Yeah.
So you don't have bare soil.
Yeah.
Because it will get damaged.
Yeah. Okay. Regenerative vegetable gardening. So I think we kind of low-till, no-till, we talked about that. Reduce any disturbance in your soil. Some research now is showing you could, if you're putting compost on top, you can work a little bit of compost, maybe just into the top inch or so. We don't do that, but if you feel for some reason you're low on nitrogen, you could do that. No spray. We don't use any spray. So our peaches get peach leaf curl, like every peach around this area. We just let them. That's the book I'm reading right now by Mel Robbins. So we just let them get peach leaf curl. They defoliate, they refoliate. It's fine. So copper is a fungicide. So when you spray your tree, your peach leaf curl with a fungicide, and it drips down to the ground, it's killing the fungus in your soil. And you don't want to be killing that fungus. Fungus is the most important thing in your soil.
And it will shorten the life of your peach tree. They're good for like 25 years, and it'll be good for 20.
So it's not that huge of a deal. Leave your roots in your soil. So we don't weed, we don't pull weeds. We just cut our weeds at soil level. We keep those roots in the soil because those roots are feeding the life in the soil. They're feeding the microbes in the soil. So we try not to pull weeds. Grow your own fertilizer. You want to talk about cover cropping now, Kathleen?
Sure.
Okay.
So cover cropping, if you don't know what cover cropping is, it's just planting, actually just throwing out seeds, huge diversity, as many families as you can, and you just let them grow. They're not for you, they're for the soil. And that's the whole point of cover cropping, is you want to grow a big diversity of plants, at least 8 families. And when you then need that land, like in my backyard, I have 3 in-ground rows. And I put 2 rows into production and 1 row I cover crop. Right now it's flipped, but so I'm just letting my cover crops just go, and they'll go to seed, and that's great.
Yeah.
And then when you need that space, you just come down with like a hedge trimmer or weed whacker, or whatever you have, and you cut them down, leave the cuttings in place. Lisa is more chop and drop. I'm more weed whacker.
Well, because I intercrop.
Yeah. And then just, put some compost and some mulch and then plant right into it. And that's kind of the basics of cover
Yeah.
cropping.
And you can see here, I intercrop my cover crop with my cash crops. And so you can see there's a bunch of flowers growing, and I probably have tomato by looking at the cages there.
Yeah.
Probably tomatoes that I have planted in there. And so why we have to chop and drop is because it's intercropped with a cash crop and cover cropping, instead of just having a designated area for cover cropping.
Yeah.
Okay.
But you can cover crop anywhere. I mean, we're talking today specifically about vegetable gardening, but like in my backyard, I throw native seeds all over.
Yeah.
And I have little natives growing all over my backyard.
Yeah, it's so nice.
And, it's better to have roots in the ground than mulch on top of my soil. So I'd rather have plants than mulch. And my spouse doesn't especially like it, but the front yard's hers, and it's all neat and tidy. And the backyard's mine, and it's kind of messy.
Yeah. It's also retraining your eye,
Yeah.
because I threw out a whole bunch of cover crop this year in my paths. So this is the farm again. And I threw them in my paths, and now there's stuff everywhere. And so you're walking on plants.
Yeah.
I have a high tolerance for a messy garden, but even for me, it's getting a little much.
Yeah.
So
You might need to weed whack.
yeah, probably have to weed whack and probably put a few more wood chips down, because we actually have to get into the rows. We have to get on the paths to work the rows.
Yeah.
So, but this slide is just everything as a system, and what we're chasing is the carbon cycle. Because carbon is what's feeding your fungi, and fungi is what's feeding your plants. So we're constantly thinking, when we never ever think in terms of watering a plant or feeding a plant. We're only thinking in terms of watering the soil and feeding the soil. And then the plant's going to take care of itself, and you don't have to worry about the plant. As long as you're taking care of your soil through cover cropping and adding compost. But your water cycle, your carbon cycle, your nitrogen cycle, all these cycles are all interconnected, and you don't want to, I could use a bad word, but I won't. You don't want to mess up those cycles. You want to keep all those cycles interacting with each other, because when you start messing up a cycle, like adding nitrogen, it's going to throw everything else off, because everything's all interconnected.
And even like the carbon cycle.
Yeah.
Like we got an email from a client yesterday. Should she add biochar to her garden? And I'm like, no. You shouldn't. It's gonna mess up the carbon cycle, and that's gonna mess up your pH, and that's gonna mess up the bioavailability of the nutrients that are in your soil. And just don't.
Yeah, don't do it. And I mean, I will say personally, well, you can see the hoops on the rows here. And so there's certain times of year, if I've planted out brassicas, that family is broccoli, cabbage, cauliflower, kale. When they're little tiny baby plants, the birds like to come and eat them. So I cover it. But then when you exclude birds, what happens? You get slugs. So it's every single time you mess with nature, you're going to pay for it one way or another. So if you can, you let nature take care of itself.
Yeah, it's been doing it a lot longer than we've been around.
Yeah, even though this is a managed system.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks, Kevin. Encouraging the ecosystems. I
think we've done this.
Yeah, we're saying the same things.
Yeah.
Create above and below ground biodiversity.
Yeah.
Minimize soil disturbance.
I will say one thing about weed selectively. If you have field bindweed, which is kind of a heart-shaped leaf,
it's a kind of an arrow-shaped
leaf, don't pull it, because when you pull it, all those roots shatter into like 100 little itty bitty tiny pieces, and they all grow.
Yeah.
So that's one where you absolutely have to cut off at ground level, soil level, and throw out the top, but don't pull those.
Yeah, yeah. The only thing I'll add, I added create habitat in your garden, which isn't part of regenerative, but
Yeah.
it's part of ecological gardening.
Yeah.
And that is what we're doing at Mission Farm. So we're putting in a big pile of rocks to bring in snakes because we do have a rodent problem. We have a rat problem. We just put up an owl box. So just trying to work and we trap. So just trying to work with nature as much as we can. And when you are cover cropping and you have all that cover, you will
get rodents.
Well, I don't know if you'll get rodents so much, but you'll get a lot of good insects.
Oh, yeah.
98% of insects are good. So you don't want to be killing insects. Okay. There we go. It's all about chasing carbon, not
Okay.
I feel like we've
covered this.
We've covered it. Chase carbon, don't chase nitrogen.
Yeah.
Okay.
But don't put in biochar. Cover crops, actually, as the sun hits the leaves and the photosynthase, the cover crops are going to exude between 30 and up to 90% of their energy into your soil, and that's carbon. That's liquid carbon, as Christine Jones calls it.
Yeah.
So you don't need to add stuff. Just buy some cover crop seeds. Nature Seeds is a great choice. Those Larners up in Bolinas. And I do natives because why not? But yeah.
Yeah. So mostly what your plants are eating is carbon. So this is our compost pile. And so I plant out 3 times a year. Between each plant out, I'll put not a lot. I'll put a 1/4 inch of compost on top. If you aren't making your own compost, I recommend you do because it's free. But Linkso, and we do not work for Linkso, but Linkso has a very good compost called Diestel Structured Compost, and it's you use it for your clients.
Yes, it's the best.
Yeah, I don't use it because I make my own, but if you didn't make your own, that's a good way to get it. And after you put compost on, then if you've already planted plants but they're not up yet or they're not big enough yet, like Kathleen said, then cover it with mulch. You can use hay mulch. You can use, if you're not using anything on your lawn, if you have a lawn, if you're not using any nitrogen or anything, then you can use those lawn clippings. That's actually my favorite to put on top to protect that compost. What we're doing all the time is we're always growing cover crops, so we're always chopping and dropping, and then they fall to the ground, and then I always have a living mulch and a dead mulch on top. So okay, next.
Was it called D-still? What'd you call it?
D-still, like the turkey.
Okay.
And it is in fact.
It is in fact the turkey. It's the poop. So when I cover crop a lot with California natives, so you'll see Phacelia, Larner seed. So Larners, my poppies aren't the same poppies that you're going to see on the side of 280. My poppies are actual California poppies. Before Caltrans, what Caltrans did is they just picked like a color and they just seeded everywhere. So everybody thinks that the California poppy is the Golden State and the dark orange. Yeah, but actually poppies come in, California poppies come in white and yellow and pink and all sorts of beautiful colors. So we talked about this, I intercrop. So right now, in my garden right now, it has 5-spot, it has baby blue eyes, it has Phacelia, it has Clarkia, lupin. And when you look down, and I also have some cover crops that aren't California natives. And this literally happened to me not very long. I looked down and the native bee, which is in that bottom picture there, is on my poppy. It's right next to an oriental poppy, and it's a European honeybee on the oriental poppy. And it's just like living proof that our native insects need our native plants. And it's just so funny. That's another native, it's a tiny, tiny bee on that middle poppy. But those are our native. There's 1,500 different native bees or something like the number's wrong, but the concept's right.
There's a lot.
There's a lot. How to terminate your cover crops. I chop and drop. You kind of do too, Kathleen, but you just do it with a,
Yeah,
you just do it with
I
a,
just do it with a weed whacker,
yeah.
but I leave, I mean, I don't break it up or anything, I just
Yeah.
leave it.
Yeah, no, I do the same.
Yeah, it was like at that Western Hort Talk,
Yeah,
one of the people asked, I said, I weed whack my cover crop, and she was like, oh, but it's so messy. And I'm like, I'm throwing mulch all over my garden, what do you mean?
yeah, it's messy.
It's free.
Yeah. Okay. Next slide. Cover crop versus living mulch, which I think we kind of went into this.
Yeah, it's all the same.
Yeah, I mean, I use cover crop, living mulch, and green manure interchangeably. There's some technical difference.
Yeah,
I have a
yeah.
house in Portola Valley. So the one with the baby blue eyes and the poppies and the tidy tips are actually at PV. But the
Yeah.
yarrow, I also use yarrow as a cover crop, and it's
Yeah.
perennial,
Yeah,
so it comes back, but it's still really beautiful. All right, we'll get on to vegetables pretty quick.
we did this.
We talked about cover cropping,
Okay,
and I
next
think you
slide.
guys
No till.
no-till, low-till. So that's Mission Farm 3 years ago. I've been there for 17 years, but I moved away from the house and it kind of went fallow. It went just like a big weed pile for a few years, and then now we took it back about 3 years ago. But I want to, in the next slide, I think it shows within 3 months it went from, oh, hang on, oops, our dead fish head.
Oh,
No, you can go ahead. Sorry, I want the fish one. I know I came up with this and Kathleen thinks it's kind of silly, but
I just think it's weird.
the whole premise behind everything we're saying is give your soil a fishing pole, don't give it a fish head, which means let your plants fend for themselves. Don't pour a bunch of stuff on them. Don't spray them with a bunch of stuff. Don't let them fend for themselves, which they'll do.
That has one too many M's.
Oops.
What's
Oh,
the
it's not
food?
hummus. It's humus. Oh, I didn't change that. Whoops. Anyway, let your soil, treat your soil right, take care of your microbes, take care of the life in your soil, and that's going to take care of your plant. So there are gardeners, when they plant their tomatoes, they're putting
Yeah.
fish heads and they're putting aspirin and they're putting eggshells and they're
yeah.
putting all
Banana
this
peels.
stuff in there. And you can do that if you want. We're not saying don't do it, but we're saying you don't have to do it. We're saying if you just are cover cropping and mulching and taking care of your soil, you don't need to be adding a bunch of stuff.
And you'll actually, if you don't do all that stuff, you'll have a stronger, healthier plant that's going to give you better tasting, more nutrient dense food.
Yeah, this is all, the whole reason you do everything we just talked about is for the nutrient density in your food, which is way, way higher in a regenerative organic model than in any other, than in sustainable, than in biodynamic, than in biointensive, than in any other model. So you can,
Do we want to take one question?
we could take one question, but I do want to talk about phytonutrients.
Okay.
For just a second.
Okay.
So the reason why we're harping on this so much is in the book, and it was just put out by Dr. David Livingston and his wife, Anne
Montgomery.
David Montgomery, sorry.
And
And Bill Beekman.
Yeah.
Anyway, everybody's known for a long time that, healthy soil, healthy plant, healthy person, but it hasn't been able to be scientifically proven until now. And now they do have a way to test it. And so what they're finding out is if you do regenerative practices and organic practices combined, and your soil has to fend for itself, it's making all these phytochemicals and phytonutrients to ward off disease, to ward off insects, to ward off, so it's becoming a very strong, resilient plant. And then you eat the broccoli from that plant, or you eat the kale, and what it's doing in the human body is antioxidants and anti-inflammatories. So you're eating a very, very healthy plant, and you become very, very healthy by eating that healthy plant. And the best plant you can eat is the plant grown in your own garden, because you know the practices you're using. And also it saves food miles, you don't have to transport it, and you water better than the farmer's going to water it. So that's why growing vegetables in your backyard or front yard is so important. Okay.
Okay.
This is a soil test from Mission Farm. We have an upper field and a lower field. And the only reason why I'm putting it up here is just as a proof. I have never used fertilizer in 17 years, and I have everything you need. I'm not short. I guess there's one thing that's a manganese in one of my fields that's a little bit low, but basically I have optimum or, medium or optimum, exactly where I want to be. And that's from no fertilizer, no sprays, no nothing for 17 years. So I just put it up there as kind of a proof. Okay, next. Nutrient. Oh, we already talked about nutrient dense veggies.
Yeah.
So we should know our slides were. So that was Mission Farm on May 7th, 2022. And less than 3 months later, that is Mother Nature right there.
Yeah.
So the corn was everything there was planted from seed. Yeah, everything there was planted from seed in ground. And that's just, it does not take a lot of time. Mother Nature is extraordinarily generous. And God, even that, there's a sunflower in the back there that's probably 6 feet tall, and the corn's probably 7 feet tall. And it's just amazing how, if you're taking care of your soil and you have a lot of sun.
Yeah, I was going to say full sun is amazing, isn't it?
Yeah, full sun's amazing. Okay, next slide, and we'll talk about sun. So now we're really into the vegetable part. That was the soil part. So what do you need to grow good vegetables? You need sun, and you need living soil that we just talked a lot about, and you need water. And it helps if you have patience, curiosity, and the power of observation. So those are the ingredients. You've got that, and you're good. Sun means if you're growing a leaf or a root vegetable, at least 6 hours. And that's 6 hours of sun hitting the leaf. That's not dappled shade. That's not partial shade. It can be 3 hours in the morning and then a break, and then 3 hours in the afternoon. And that's a minimum for leaf and root vegetables. Fruiting vegetables, which is everything in summer. That's all your tomatoes, cucumbers, beans, eggplant, peppers, squash, winter squash, summer squash, 8 hours. Yeah.
Well, it's grass, but
yeah,
you're eating the fluorescent.
Yeah. So, and again, all I would say is just be honest with yourself. Really make sure that you're getting the sun. If you give the plant what it needs, good soil and sun and adequate water, you're not gonna, I can guarantee, I should knock on wood, but in 17 years, I haven't had diseases. I haven't had any problems. But I'm having, I give my plants what they need. Okay.
And when Lisa, I just want to emphasize what 8 hours of sun means. It means, think of yourself or your plant's leaves as solar panels. And if you're going to make that investment of solar panels, you're going to make sure it gets the most sun it possibly can, because that's the energy that you're going to get. So if your leaves are in shade, they're not getting any energy. And they can't protect themselves. They don't have enough energy to then protect themselves, and they're going to get diseases and they're going to get insects. But like my spouse, in the front of her house, she probably got 2 hours of sun, but those 2 hours was when she was home. So she thought she got full sun. And it blew my mind that she was like, oh, we can plant anything. I get full sun. I'm like, no, you don't.
Lots of people think that.
Yeah, they'd actually like spend an entire day out in your garden and make sure you get full sun.
There is an app now called Shadow Map. There's an app, and it tells you how much sun you get. I actually haven't used it yet, so I don't know how to use it. But
there's an app for that.
There's an app for that. But go in your garden, track the pattern of the sun, and then just be honest with yourself. That's all we can say.
Yeah, because we have gone to a lot of people's gardens to troubleshoot,
Yeah.
And 99% of the time, they're underneath a tree or they're shaded. They're not in full sun and they're not getting the production they want.
Yeah. Yeah.
And they do have full sun, but it's
2 hours
their
a day.
lawn. No, it's their lawn.
Oh, it's their lawn.
So
Yeah.
you're gonna give up your full sun to your lawn and plant your vegetables under the oak tree, whatever.
Yeah. All right. Where to grow, raised beds or in the ground. So the left-hand side is one of Kathleen's clients and right-hand side is my sassy little daughter. When she was,
Wow.
when she was like 6 or something. Now she's 21 and she's still sassy. But I personally prefer in the ground because, you know, even back then, so that's whatever, 16 years ago or something.
Yeah.
And you can see I have mustard and I have fennel and I have something else. I don't know, beans maybe, and then a different kind of mustard. Anyway, it was all mixed up in there, growing different crops. I like it because it can access the soil food web a lot easier when it's in the ground. It's a little more of a contrived environment in a raised bed. However, raised beds have benefits too. They're easier, like your client who has, you know, she has
Those
cages,
covers over 'em.
covers. It's easier to do
Which
trellises.
were really nice. If you see this back one, this whole slide came off. So you
Yeah.
could easily access it.
Yeah, and I think she used 1/4 inch hardware cloth.
Yeah.
So bees, because you still want pollinators to get in there.
Yeah.
So pollinators could still get in. So there's benefits. If you are going to do a raised bed, I would recommend again Lingso, but they're a vegetable mix, and it's just called vegetable blend. And then the microbes are going to eat all the carbon up in that soil, and your carbon's going to go down to or your soil's going to go down to half. What's missing is carbon. So don't add a whole bunch of nitrogen and don't add more soil. They now make a mix and it's called veggie amendment mix.
Yeah.
And that's what you should put in when your raised beds are dropping down, because you need to replace the carbon that those little microbes have eaten and digested and pooped.
Okay.
All right.
I prefer the ground too.
Yeah. Yeah. But a lot of people like raised beds. So
Yeah.
yeah. I think of gardening in 3 seasons. This is my neighbor's yard. His beautiful raised beds. But anyway, yeah, you kind of take December and January off, other than some seeding that you do, and you can take July off. So this is spring, and right now, early April, yeah. It's getting a little late to do any kind of brassicas, anything in that family, but pretty quick here for me. I say April 15th through May 15th.
Or Mother's Day was always my deadline.
Mother's Day, to get your tomatoes, your peppers, your eggplant, your zucchini, cucumbers. I've already put my beans out.
Yeah.
I've already planted my bush beans. I've already started my seed for my pole beans. So you're a little late for brassicas, but pretty coming up is all your summer stuff.
But if you do plant your tomatoes in the same place every year, I would throw a couple broccoli in there today.
Yeah, okay, that's a good plan.
Because UC Davis did some research. The number 1 disease that tomatoes get is verticillium, and broccoli will actually kill the verticillium. So you can, you're supposed to rotate your crop every 3 years, and I have this with clients. I have one place that's great for tomatoes and the others are shady. So I plant broccoli there twice a year, and then in the summer, that's where the tomatoes go.
Yeah.
And that's my crop rotation. So
Yeah. And then just think in your garden, like my tomatoes will go all the way to October. As a matter of fact, my first tomato is always July 18th. When
that's pretty specific.
it's my daughter's birthday.
Oh,
And it just happens to coincide with my first tomato.
okay.
But my big crop is kind of August and September. Starting in October, you just don't have enough sun anymore. So what I've been doing is taking off some of my green tomatoes. They still will ripen countertop. And then taking my tomatoes and summer stuff out in October. But you've already had to have planted, your fall crop is really planted in August and September. So I sneak that in with all of my summer stuff. And then when I take my tomatoes out, which I just cut them off at soil level, just like I do a weed, and I take that top of the plant and I put it in my compost pile. And it's, it's 10 feet tall and 10 feet wide. It's a lot of biomass. It goes into my compost pile. If it's diseased, I wouldn't put it in there, but I haven't. I should knock on wood again. I've never had a diseased tomato plant. So I cut everything off at soil level, but I've already interplanted with all my broccoli, cabbage, cauliflower, kales, chard, spinach. We'll get into the slide on all of that. I like marathon for a spring planted, a February, March planted broccoli. And here's the thing with broccoli. I mean, you plant it in February, March. I am still harvesting off of that same broccoli in October. So a spring planted broccoli, you'll get that central head and then you'll get a whole bunch of side sprouts. And you're harvesting over that such a long time. Your fall planted, your August, September, October planted broccoli, you get your center head and you'll get a few side sprouts after you harvest that center head, but it goes to seed just like that. And it doesn't matter. I've tried marathon in both ways. I like gypsy for a fall planted broccoli, and I like marathon for a spring planted broccoli. Fall and spring, you kind of have to adjust your mind about 2 months earlier than what the calendar says. And okay, next slide.
It's vernalization.
Fertilization.
Yep.
Yeah. This is the planting chart that I love. And if you just go to UC Master Gardener, Santa Clara County vegetable planting chart, it will come up. It's by the side of my desk. I look at it every single day. And we work in the farm every Monday and Thursday. So I'm like, what can I still seed? What is it too late to seed? I'm just always looking at, we just did radishes and lettuce. We did some short crops just a week ago. So this is a great, I color code it because it is pretty long. And you could tape it next to each other if you wanted to. But anyway, this is the best chart out there. We've looked at a lot of charts. We love Pam Pierce. She's actually the person who taught us vegetable gardening, and she has the Golden Gate Gardener, the book. This chart
is way better than hers.
Yeah, this chart is the best chart out there.
Yeah,
it just is. And we could answer questions on how to read it. But it's pretty self-explanatory.
Yeah.
Okay. What warm versus cool? So right now we're going obviously into our warm season, which is your whole tomato family, your cucumber family, corn and beans. And you'll see an overlap. They're good between 65 and 85. And then your cool season is good between 55 and 75. So between 65 and 75, you can grow all of these actually. The biggest family is the brassica family, and that's even in the summer. Because I've planted my spring garden, so I have kale, I have broccoli, I have right now beautiful cauliflower. So that's growing almost year round. I have brassica, and we'll talk about crop rotation. Beets, we just harvested all of our beets.
Did you really?
Mm-hmm. But we just planted some more beets and chard. Spinach is hard for me to grow. And anyway, this is a slide, and I don't know if Pat can give you this to everybody to get.
She's going to give them
the presentation.
She's going to email it to them.
Oh, good. Okay, thanks. So this is a great slide. So you need to know your families because you need to be rotating your crops. You want to talk about crop rotation?
Well, crop rotation, like I was saying about the broccoli and the tomatoes, the reason you rotate crops is if you grow the same plant in the same place year after year after year, the likelihood of a disease increases every year you plant it unless you break the cycle. And you break the cycle by planting it somewhere else. So you have 3 rows. You plant your tomatoes here 1 row, you plant your tomatoes there the next year, and you plant your tomatoes in the 3rd row the next year. And between those, you're doing corn or beans or cucumbers. but not eggplant and peppers, because they're all in the same family. And that's why you need to know your families. Yeah, that's it.
I think that covers it.
Yeah.
All right.
And if you can't, plant broccoli.
Okay. How seeds or starts. We used to do a farmer's market on the weekend. So this is the farmer's market. I start everything from seed, but it's only because I have a couple acres.
I don't start anything from seed. Yeah, I mean, there's some stuff I direct sow, because you're an idiot if you don't direct sow carrots or beets, because they're impossible to transplant. But I have some great nurseries in Santa Cruz. First, let's put that out there, that they're dwindling. In Santa Cruz, there's still great nurseries.
Yeah.
And I go and I buy wonderful little 6-packs of whatever I want, or 4-inch in the summer.
Yeah.
And they have a huge variety. I don't need to buy a package of seeds because I want 2 plants.
Yeah.
Which I think is a common thing, home gardeners. So I get a 4-inch, charge my clients 30% more than I paid for it, and we're all good.
Yeah. 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 For me, I do start everything from seed because
You couldn't afford to
I'm
buy.
doing thousands and thousands of seedlings. So, yeah, there's some local nurseries that I'm not thrilled with. So if I do have to buy something, I would drive over to Half Moon Bay Nursery, or I get it from you. I get
Or
it from
golden is nice, I think. Have you been to Golden?
I haven't. I don't know it.
Oh, it's right off of 101.
Okay.
I've been there before.
Yeah. Most of my seeds I order, so I
Yeah.
really don't go to nurseries.
Yeah.
Start your own. The advantage of doing things from seed is there's such a variety. It's amazing the different varieties you can get. And I make my own mix. I make my own seed starting mix and my own potting mix from our compost. I do add a little perlite and some lignopede or some quarter mice for. Okay. Irrigation. You're the irrigation person.
Yeah. So I really like drip irrigation, and especially for summer vegetables, you almost have to have drip irrigation because you don't want to get the leaves wet. Don't do a closed loop system. What I really like is the inline emitters, because they're pressure regulated now at each emitter, and I use the 6-inch. That it's 1/4-inch line, and it emits every 6 inches. I really like the 6-inch because then I know my spacing. Pretty easy to figure out. At the end, I just put a goof plug. You don't need. So this is a 1/2-inch line, and this is the 1/4-inch line. So here's your water source. And in the old days, they used to you used to have a closed loop. So you'd have your 1/2-inch coming all the way around and back there, because they didn't have pressure regulating emitters. So you had to have a closed system. That's no longer true. You don't need a closed system. And when you have a closed system, it's really hard to move the entire thing when you're adding more soil or mulching. So don't do a closed loop. Water in the morning if possible. The best way. What I'm actually teaching in irrigation next week.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah, dark-green class.
Yeah.
And online, if you look at an overwatered plant and an underwatered plant, they're identical. So what you need to do is put your finger in the soil and see, is it wet or is it dry? If it's wet, don't water it. It's overwatered. If it's dry, water it. Yeah, that's about it.
All right. Next. Yeah. That's Mission Farm again, and that's the gopher. So we do trap.
She looks so happy.
I know she is. So we trap gophers, we trap rats, and that's a picture just taken the other day with the green covers.
How's that going?
It's working. It's working. I'm taking them off. This is like from a month ago.
Because rats, I thought would chew through it.
Oh no, they won't. It's 1/2-inch. It's 1/4-inch hardwood cloth.
Oh, I thought it was plastic.
Mm-mm.
Oh, okay.
No, it's steel So I'm taking them off because we planted out broccoli about a month ago, and now the broccoli is starting to hit the tops of these cages. So I'm gonna take them off and I'm gonna see what happens. Now, I mean, a rat could come and steal. We've never had problems with pest or disease, but we do have a rat issue. So we're just trying to keep it, under wraps by exclusion and by trapping.
Yeah,
So
and squirrels for your fruit trees.
and squirrels, and we do trap squirrels too. Squirrels you have to euthanize
Humanely.
You can't drown them, but you can't take them off your property. They have to stay on your property.
Alive. You can take them off your property dead, can't you?
Well, then, yeah, or you can bury them.
That's what I used
Yeah.
to do until I got in trouble.
Yeah, yeah. What else do we need to know here?
What the disease or what the pests they might get. They might get aphids and whitefly.
If you have whitefly, it's probably because you're overwatering. Aphids, brassicas are gonna get aphids.
Yeah.
Just at the end of their life.
Yeah.
Their aphids are gonna come in, and that's just, let them. Okay.
And you put out sluggo when you plant your brassicas.
I do. That's the only other thing I buy them seeds is sluggo. Because I'm excluding birds, then I have to, which I don't like, but then I have to put out sluggo, which I use it's omri, it's organic, but still I prefer it if I didn't have to.
Yeah.
Harvesting.
Oh,
We both kind of have the same reaction to
I hate
harvesting.
harvesting.
But harvesting, just plan on it. It takes a third of your gardening time. I put like a third of my time into seeding, probably a third tending, and harvesting just takes a lot of time.
And if you hate
Hours.
harvesting, don't plant 5 cherry tomato plants. Because, I mean, plant like if you live in a sunny, warm spot, plant some nice big beefsteaks. Because that's like one, you only have to pick one. You don't have to pick 20 of them.
Yeah. So, I mean, harvesting it just takes a lot of time. What I try to do and I never accomplish is if it's a single serving vegetable, like a beet, when I take out that beet, I put another seed in, take out that beet, put another. So you just keep having, for a single serving vegetable, you keep having a supply. Now, tomatoes, other than an indeterminate, other than a determinate, they're going to just keep producing. Same with beans, pole beans better than bush beans. So I do a staggered planting of my bush beans because they'll only produce for a few weeks. And then you're going to need to have your next beans come in and they'll produce for a few weeks.
What about zucchini?
Zucchini, I mean, some people do the same thing with zucchini and they do a staggered planting. So with cucumbers, I do a staggered planting because they get bitter. So I do a staggered planting. A lot of times what I do for beans, cucumbers, zucchini is if I plant, I've already started them and they're already up and they look good. So when I'm planting out a plant, I'll also plant a seed at the same time, and that's my stagger.
Oh, that's
it's
a
about
good idea.
a 3-week stagger,
Yeah.
which is about what you need.
You're so smart.
I know. Successive sowing. That's kind of what we're talking about is let it, and there's some things that you just want to keep sowing, and lettuce is one of the few seeds you just do it on top. It's called photoblastic positive, but it needs sunlight to germinate, so don't cover it. And in general, if you do decide to seed, you're just gonna either poke it in the same diameter as a seed. So if it's a watermelon seed that's big, you're gonna poke it down 1/4 inch. If it's a brassica seed and it's that big, it's barely covered. So
Or a carrot.
Carrots, yeah.
That's like the tiniest little seed you ever saw.
Yeah. So, okay, I think it's, drought, weather. Okay.
Oh, yeah.
We'll just talk about atmospheric rivers for a minute and droughts. I will say, if you're cover cropping and you have roots in the ground, one of the many reasons you're doing it is because of water infiltration. So as long as you have plants growing, plants are fertilizer. As long as you have plants growing, you're going to have you're not going to have puddling. Oh God. We have a client who does not have good soil.
No,
in
and
her.
does not have good landscapers.
No. And so she has puddling after an atmosphere. She has puddling all over the place. But at the farm, we never have
Yeah.
puddling because it's all infiltrating down.
In my backyard, there's one little section where my roses end,
Yeah,
and I could never get anything to grow there.
yeah.
I kept like throwing seeds and trying that like back down on my knees. Let's figure out what's going on. It's all river rock.
Oh, interesting.
It looks like soil because I haven't cleaned,
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
just like debris that looks like, so that's where my puddle is.
Oh, yeah,
But that's only because there aren't any roots in the ground.
yeah.
There's river rock.
As long as you have roots in the ground. And then the
Yeah.
other thing people mistake in their mind is, oh, if you plant all these plants and all this cover crop, it's going to take up so much water. Well, actually the opposite is true. It holds moisture in the soil. So when you have all these roots in your soil, all these plants, it's like a reservoir of water in there. So I can guarantee if you have a raised bed with nothing in it and a raised bed with a whole bunch of plants in it, and let's say you're
Yeah.
putting the same amount of water on it because they're on the same system, and you go and you dig in that raised bed with no plants, it's going to be dry as a bone. And if you dig around where the plants are, it's going to be nice and moist because that soil is covered and there's living roots in it. Okay, now it's Q&A.
Thank you for
Yeah.
having us.
Yeah, thank you, Cemetery. And there's one more slide, but it's just to advertise the spring garden market that's going to be on April 19th. The Master Gardeners are having a spring garden market at the San Mateo County Event Center, and from 9 to 10, it's free parking. And it's good. If you haven't bought your tomatoes yet, they're $6 each. The herbs, I grew the herbs this year. They're I think everything's $6. And there's natives there if you want to buy natives. Anyway, I think it's worth your time if you haven't bought any of your stuff yet. Okay, now question.
Couple questions. The first one, I guess, is related to composting. You were saying that you guys encourage composting.
Yeah.
But then you also mentioned later on that you shouldn't be putting egg shells and stuff, adding nutrients into the soil.
That's
Could you repeat the question for the?
yeah. So he has a question about composting and not putting things into the compost. There's what is it? A tomato recipe planting that somebody promotes actually in the Santa Cruz Mountains, where she says dig down 2 feet, and in the bottom of that hole you've created for your plant to put a fish head, an aspirin, eggshells. She's got a whole bunch of stuff. You don't need to do that. If you have eggshells and fish heads, throw it in your compost by all means.
Yeah, put it in your compost pile. Now, if you have a rat problem, and you have a fish head or a fish, you want to put it in like the middle of the compost pile. And compost, it does need to be 9 cubic feet. It needs to be like 3 feet by 3 feet minimum for it to get enough heat going to actually decompose. But yeah, I mean, I have some vegetarian. I don't put rats and gophers in my compost pile, but there'd be nothing wrong with doing that. It's just my family won't eat my vegetables if I do that. But
Really?
in Australia,
They put kangaroos in there.
they put kangaroos in their compost pile.
The really big piles. I mean, kangaroos are big.
Kangaroos are big. We saw a cross section of a
that's hilarious.
compost pile, and it had like 9 kangaroos in it. It was like a huge, but it's just organic matter, right? Anything carbon based can go into your compost pile. You just have to be careful for rodents.
Yeah.
And then the second question was that we live on a riverbed, and it's highly alkaline soil.
Oh.
It feels just like clay when you're digging through it.
Yeah.
In that case, do you suggest tilling and trying to bring in some other things to like kind of acidify the soil? Because I'm not sure what to do with this super alkaline clay.
Yeah.
I would do 2 things. First, I would do the jar test, which is just getting a mason jar, going down a few inches, digging it out, putting it in a thing and with water. You can just Google mason jar test for soil, and let it sit and see what you really do have. Because everybody in the Bay Area says my soil is pure clay, and I thought it was true for myself too. I I did that. I have no clay in my soil, like none. I have silt and I have sand and I have no clay. So, I
But
live
on a
on-
riverbed, you may have clay soil.
yeah, and I'm not saying you don't. I'm just
Yeah.
saying, make sure you have what you think you have.
So I did a soil test, but I didn't do the jar test.
Yeah, do
yeah.
the jar test. Yeah, and then if, it doesn't matter if it's sandy or if it's clay.
You do
our-
the same thing anyway.
Our
Compost
recommendation is
and-
gonna be the
yeah.
same, is just add compost, add it to the top. I'd probably put some daikon radish.
Yeah,
I'd put some deep growing roots, like a daikon radish, and let it break up that soil naturally. You could do a broad fork.
yeah,
You could take this thing, it kind of looks like a pitchfork, but it's bigger, and you actually stand on it and you go back
and you rock it back and forth and it opens up your soil. And then you could do that first and then put compost on top. And then I would cover crop like crazy. And I would do really deep rooted sunflowers would be great.
Yeah.
Daikon radishes, and then when those,
grasses.
yeah, when those plants are over, don't take out the roots. So cut it off at soil level. And I would do that for probably a couple seasons.
Yeah.
And then I'd start growing my
Yeah.
vegetables in there.
The good thing about being in a riverbed, I mean, you probably have a lot of nutrients.
Oh, I bet
in your
it's crazy
soil.
full of nutrients.
Yeah, it's probably really, really good soil.
Yeah,
But it probably needs to be opened up a little bit.
yeah,
Yeah, and whether you, I would still do the jar test just to see what you have, but it is gonna be, if you had sandy soil, we would have said the same.
yeah, you need carbon.
Yes, I have a question about volcanic ash.
Hmm,
Do you ever use volcanic ash?
no.
Could you repeat the question?
And
She wants to know whether or not we ever use volcanic ash.
there was a fellow that graduated from the University of California, and I bought 25 pounds of volcanic ash from him, used it under my fig tree, and I grew some spinach around there and flowers. I grew like edible roses too.
Nice.
And at the Jewish Community Center, which I was in charge of the beds there. I did not use, they did not have volcanic ash there,
Mhm.
but I grew peas there very well in certain designs.
Ooh.
You can grow them in teepee style.
Oh,
which is
beautiful.
very
It's really
beautiful.
pretty.
Yeah, very well. But, oh, I also grew geraniums there. So what do you think also about using geraniums and roses together? Because
Yeah.
in very fine restaurants, starting about 60 years ago, the finest restaurants used geraniums and roses for eating.
Yeah, I mean, that just goes to what, so we're a no input garden, so we don't use any inputs at all other than our homemade compost, so that's why we would say no to the volcanic ash. But anything you can do to have biodiversity, like geraniums and roses growing together, anything you can do to have more biodiversity, the better off you are. And you can think of it this way. I mean, do you want a table full of white cisgender old men making policy for you, or do you want a table of all sorts of different socioeconomic groups and different cultures and different colors? Is that who you want to make decisions?
I thought you were gonna say, do you want a plate full of white? And then I thought you were gonna say bread. Is that what you want for dinner?
Cisgender males.
Or do you want like a plate full of vegetables?
My point is biodiversity is good, and biodiversity is where you're gonna get your best. It's
Yeah.
nothing against
So-
white cisgender males. I'm just saying that the more biodiverse your garden is, the healthier it is.
Yeah, so the more different plants you can have growing anywhere at any time, the better.
Yeah.
We have a number of. Thank you.
Okay, wait, let's get this.
If, how important is it to test your soil for contaminants like lead? And if it is found to have that, how do you rectify
If you, if you suspect it may be contaminated, I would test.
Yeah, for sure.
And if you come back that it is contaminated, I would get one of those big horse troughs and I would grow my vegetables and any fruit trees in that.
So get rid of the soil entirely. You can't really.
You-
I don't think you can mitigate.
I don't think you can mitigate. Yeah. There is some plants do bioremediation.
Like
I-
daikon radish.
Yeah, like daikon radish, but then you need to pull up the entire plant and put it in the garbage. You can't even compost that because it's full of lead. It's full of I think it's mostly for carbon.
Yeah, you would have to ask an expert. I
Yeah.
don't know how to get rid of lead in a soil. I don't know if you can.
Yeah,
And usually it's because they painted your house with pre-1967
Yeah.
or 76.
yeah. But you know those horse troughs. I mean,
Yeah, but we have, a house in San Francisco, which
Yeah.
has limited space, so we already have a raised bed of existing soil.
yeah.
So if, the question is, if it has
Oh,
contamination.
yeah. It's in a raised bed. Yeah.
We dug around the house and put that in the raised.
Oh,
bed.
I see what you're
Okay.
saying. Okay, yeah, I would test it.
Okay.
If it comes back that it's contaminated, take it out.
And then just get Lingso veggie blend and
Yeah,
put it in
then
there.
just get, a soil is free and clear.
Yeah, and raised beds, just garden soil, just in general, but soil from your yard in a raised bed usually doesn't work.
Oh.
Raised,
Because it behaves differently. It's not in the ground anymore. And you've changed its environment and it compacts, it doesn't have enough carbon, it doesn't have good drainage,
yeah.
because it's,
Just, so if you're gonna do a raised bed, you really do have to then
getting
bring in,
engineered
they
soil.
call it engineered soil, but you need to bring in a different soil. You can't use your, yeah. Yeah, go ahead.
So speaking of raised beds, I'm planning an elementary school garden.
Oh, fun.
And yeah, it's super fun. And I'm curious if you had suggestions between raised beds versus in ground. It seems like raised beds might be easier to manage class by class.
Depends probably hard on your,
Can you repeat?
Yeah, so she's doing a school garden and she wants to know our recommendation, raised bed versus in ground. I personally
Mhm.
would say do a raised bed if you have the funds.
Yeah, it depends on your
It
budget.
costs significant, I mean, it's way more expensive to do raised beds. If you have the funds, I would do it just because kids are gonna step on the soil in places you don't want them to. I
Yeah.
mean, I step on the soil in places Lisa would scream at me.
Yeah.
So, but if you don't have the funds, in ground is fine too.
Yeah, it really does depend on your budget, because there's a lot that's gonna go into that budget. The irrigation, the raised beds, the soil, plants, seeds, Yeah.
And if you do in ground, all you need is irrigation,
and then
that's it,
plants and
or
seeds.
seeds,
Yeah,
yeah.
wood chips you can get for free, like all our wood chips that are in our paths. We just get them from free by calling up an arborist, and so we keep our paths with wood chips. Not so much at the moment, but yeah.
Kevin, you said you had some.
Yeah, there's some Zoom questions. The first is, can you recommend a type of mulch?
I can only recommend a type I wouldn't use, and this was recent information I gathered, that bark mulches don't have any nutrients in them, which when you think about it makes sense. Why would a tree waste its energies on putting nutrients in its bark? But most nurseries only sell bark mulch. So, but wood chips, any kind of wood chip, I would recommend, or straw, or
We use,
chopped up alfalfa.
yeah, chopped up alfalfa. We do use hay.
Yeah, but hay might sprout.
Yeah, hay might sprout. If you do have a lawn, or if your neighbor has a lawn, you could use the grass clippings from
Yeah.
when they mow their lawn. That's probably my favorite.
Yeah, but almost everybody fertilizes their lawn.
Yeah, you just need to make sure that it's not fertilized.
Yeah.
Next question, how do you feel about vermiculite as a compost strategy?
I put compost in, I put vermiculite. I used to, I don't anymore, but I used to put it in my seed starting mix.
But why would you put it in your compost?
No, you wouldn't put anything. weird in your compost. And my definition is weird is gonna be different than other people. My definition is weird is anything that you're buying from a store, like
I knew
vermiculite
that's what you're gonna say.
or perlite. I wouldn't mind putting a fish head in my compost or
Yeah.
putting a gopher in my
Yeah,
compost.
and you wouldn't put anything in your compost that you bought.
Yeah, no, I've
You
never,
wouldn't, anything you bought for your compost.
yeah,
If you bought it for yourself, and it,
yeah. I mean, some people go around, so the person who did teach us
Yes.
gardening, she
goes
would
around.
go around to like barber shops and get their old hair. It was Pam Pierce who taught with Gus. Anyway, she would go around, anything organic can go
or
into.
your master gardener teacher used to give us alerts. Oak leaves on such and such street, the
Yeah.
homeowners don't want them.
Yeah, run out and get those oak leaves. So anything natural carbon based can go into your compost pile, but nothing that you would purchase.
How would you revitalize raised beds that have not been used for several years?
I would add some vegetable amendment.
I'd add the vegetable amendment if it still has soil in it. If the soil seems super funky, you might want to take the soil out and put new veggie blend in.
Yeah, but if it's just been sitting there and it's all weedy, is it weedy? If
Yeah.
it's weedy, then you could go ahead and start, just add some vegetable amendment. If it's been sitting there and there's nothing growing,
Then I'd probably.
there's a
take-
problem. I take that soil out.
Yeah, as long as there's weeds. Yeah, that's a
Yeah.
good point. Okay, any more from the gar?
This is a question, Mike. I get, is Linkso's arbor mulch like a good mulch? Because it's not bark mulch,
Yeah,
it's basically wood chips
Yeah.
that need to bring it up.
Yeah, it's wood chips that I think they've put through like 3 times, so they're more
they
uniform.
chip it more, than the arborist chip it.
Yeah,
But you had to buy that. I mean, if you have the space for an arborist to dump a load at your house, it's free, and they're so happy to do it.
but you need to have the space and you need to have the manpower,
Yeah.
woman power to put it all around and so, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
That will, oh, sorry, go ahead. Yeah,
I have trouble stuffing my seeds. You
Uh-huh.
recommend some kind of mix?
so, wait,
I
her
make my
question
own-
is, she has trouble getting her seeds up.
Yeah,
Yeah.
sorry. You can buy a seed starting mix. And that's probably what I would recommend. I mean, I have my own compost and I trust it. And I put it through a 1/2-inch screen, then I put it through a 1/4-inch screen, and then I do add a little perlite to it. And I add something to hold, I add a little, I don't use peat. I haven't used peat moss in a long, long time. But I have to have something to hold the moisture, so I add a little lignapeat or a little quarter minus fir, and that holds the moisture. Yeah, quarter minus fir.
Mm-mm.
No, you can buy it at
Fir
Link's.
tree,
Yeah.
FIR.
Yeah,
I have my own compost, so.
you could probably start it
Yeah.
yourself then, but just put it through a 1/4-inch screen, so there's no big chunks in it. Because if the seed hits a chunk,
Always.
sometimes it, won't always go around, depends how big the seed, like a pea or a bean is gonna go around, but brassica might not. So yeah, you could put your compost and put a little perlite, because you need it light and fluffy, you need a lot of air in there. And I would, this is the only time where I do have to buy something that's for my seed starting mix. I just go to Linkso and I get either their quarter minus fir, which is just smushed up fir bark. It is bark.
Is it bark?
It's bark, but it
Yeah.
holds moisture like
Yeah,
peat would.
which that's beneficial.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and then, or I buy their lignapeat, which is just the bark from a redwood tree. These are byproducts from mills, basically. And I do about a third, the compost, the perlite and the vermiculite, or the quarter minus fir, mix it all up, and that's what I use for my seed starting
And
mix.
then do you always use bottom heat?
I almost always use bottom heat. On my summer stuff, I always put it on a heat mat on bottom heat, and it usually comes up within 3 days. It just comes up like that.
And you cover it so it doesn't dry out too much?
Yeah, I cover it. I put a plastic sheet over it. I don't know if I have a picture.
But if you don't have, she uses the plastic from cereal,
Cereal
bags.
boxes.
that
Yeah.
they come in inside the box. You can cut those and make a sheet out of it. And you just need to cover the seeds with something so they don't dry out,
You're making
because
like
they need to be moist.
a humidity dome. So it needs to be warm and moist. And I think you'd be surprised, it'd probably come up in almost everything germinates in just in a few days. Carrots are an exception, but yeah. The bottom heat might be maybe one of the elements you're missing, but yeah, but you do need like a humidity dome or a piece of plastic over it.
Well, this blueberry, what's good cover crop for blueberry?
What's a good cover crop for blueberries? Under mine, I have some native grasses. I have poppies, I have 5-spot, I have baby blue eyes.
How about strawberries?
I don't because I just don't.
Okay.
Because strawberries, I just throw a handful of seeds.
Yeah.
And I mean, I'm naming all the plants, but it's in a seed mix I bought. And I just throw them out there. Luckily, I did it in the winter, so they're already up. But you just need a big diversity, and those plants will find the pH they need to be healthy, and the pH that the blueberry needs to be healthy.
Also have sorrel,
Yeah, sorrel. Yeah, I mean, you don't want one of anything. You want at least 8 plant families.
Diversity.
Yeah,
Back to the biodiversity.
yeah,
Question about coffee grounds.
yeah.
Do you use that in your compost? Do you spread it over plants, rose bushes? or-
I don't, but you certainly can put it in your compost pile.
Yeah.
I wouldn't spread it just by itself all over. I think it's gonna mess with the pH a little bit.
Yeah, and that's what our brother actually was doing that. He has like massive amounts of coffee grounds because of his business and his customer service lounges. And he was bringing all the coffee grounds, and he has some acid loving plants in his courtyard. And he probably has coffee grounds like this thick. And that's not good.
Okay.
Yeah. It's
Yeah.
gonna mess up when you ever do. That's why I just put everything in your compost
Yeah.
pile.
And then all the life in your compost pile, it's kind of like a big bioreactor. They will take care of everything, and they'll get it neutral, and they'll get it plant available.
Okay. Oh,
Hopefully it'll be a quick question. I've just been in a war with foxtails.
mm,
Oh,
And I have a dog, so.
Oh.
And like a very, yes,
Yeah.
and a lot of his dog friends come over and I'm always like, oh my gosh, mine's foxtails.
yeah,
So in terms of, I'm kind of reluctant to just chop the tops of those foxtails off and let them fly around the yard. And even if I was to cover
Yeah.
one, right, they just pose such a hazard.
yeah.
What do you suggest is the best way to deal with foxtails?
If it's to the point where they're already a
they're already
problem,
probably headed up.
yeah,
Like, I mean, I live in Los Angeles.
yeah. I would take I'd probably hire someone, but just take some head shears and chop off, and then gather them up and put them in your compost bin or your compost pile. They'll
Okay.
decompose just fine. But yeah, it's like what's burr clover?
Mm.
It's kind of the same thing. Those little clover burrs that get in your dog's feet.
Yeah.
Yeah, I see them. They're coming up right now.
Yep.
The little plants. So I'm cutting them off right now, so that they don't make seeds,
Okay.
because that's what is going to get in my dog's
Okay, so
feet.
you still recommend cut, don't pull.
For a burr clover, yes. If you already have foxtails, I would get rid of the seed head, and then I'd cut them down at soil level.
Yeah.
Or you could pull them.
All that being said, I might pull them.
Yeah,
Okay, I
yeah.
think pulling them and then hoping to plant other things where those
Yeah.
were.
Yeah.
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 Just throw some
If you
seeds.
can throw, I don't know how big the patch is.
It's everywhere, it's on an acre, it's just
Oh.
everywhere.
Oh.
And then the neighbor across the street is like in construction, so you just let it go.
Oh,
and it's
no.
just-
Oh,
Perpetuating a problem.
Although,
pulling it's gonna be.
they're pretty heavy seed. I don't know that his are going to travel
Oh, that's
to
good.
your job, to your property.
Hmm.
But yeah, I might pull, and I would cover crop. I'd try to pull them all.
Okay.
You can,
Yeah,
and
try to pull
then,
everything that where the dogs go is right.
yeah.
That's a big, I would.
And then I would cover
Google-
crop as soon as you pull them.
I would be curious why.
Yeah,
fox-
there is a book called What Your Weeds Are Telling You.
Yeah, I would Google, because there's something going on with your, to have that many foxtails, and
Yeah.
have like a monocrop of it. I would Google, there's something going on with your soil to
Yeah.
have that happen instead of have nature wants to have diversity. It doesn't
Yeah.
want to have.
Foxtails are winning.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah, and there's a reason. I just don't know what the reason is. But I do it after you get rid of them, whether you weed eat the whole thing and try to gather it up.
Yeah.
Then I would probably, if depends on your budget again. But if you could, I'd probably then throw out well, I'd probably throw out cover crop seeds and then I'd throw compost on top of the cover crop seeds and water it in. And what I have found, so this is when I first moved into PV, I cover cropped with a mix that had vetch in it.
Yeah.
Because I didn't know better. And then vetch escaped and I had vetch everywhere.
I still have vetch.
Oh, you do?
8 years later.
Okay. So we recommend, it wasn't in this slide, it was
Yeah.
in a different presentation we did, but we say don't do vetch. If your cover crop mix has vetch, don't use it. But anyway, what I did over time is I just kept throwing out California native wildflower seeds from Larner's and from Nature's Seed in Utah. And I'd say over the last 2 years, the California native flowers are winning. And the vetch has almost not completely, but almost completely dissipated. So if you can get rid of those seed heads, I have a little patch at the farm of foxtail.
Well, she doesn't have mature seeds yet.
No, but mine are all seeded up.
Yeah.
They haven't dried out yet,
Yeah.
but they're all have put up their seed heads. So if you can get it before they dry out.
Yeah.
That's what I've been doing. I'm
Yeah.
out there every day.
Yeah.
You need like a friend party, like, oh.
And you know, you could weed whack and then just rake it up.
Well, that's what I was, especially if it's an acre, I would weed whack and rake it up, and then I would throw out the cover crop, and then I'd throw out the compost.
Okay.
And if it's immature seeds, they're not going to become mature once they're no longer on the plant.
No,
I mean, on the ground.
You're probably okay just leaving it on the ground.
Yeah, I just rake it up.
But it's dogs, and if dogs, yeah,
No, that's a trip to the vet in the middle of the night.
yeah, it's just gonna be it's gonna be expensive to do all of that.
Okay.
Yeah, or you could mow it.
Yeah, you could mow it.
Yeah, just mow it with a bag. You know, I have like a mulching mower,
Depending on your
but you can also
terrain.
put a bag on it.
Yeah, the terrain's pretty like up and down and
Yeah.
it makes mowing kind of hard.
You could hire someone to
They're
mow
just
it.
also growing like in between other plants.
Yeah.
They're growing in between the roses. They're growing in between
Oh.
the lavender. They're like,
They are telling you something, I don't know what it
Yeah.
is, but I would Google, why do I have so many foxes? Because there's something going on with the soil, I think.
Yeah, no, I agree.
It's always the
Okay,
soil.
so
Okay.
any last questions or?
Yes. Do you ever use worms?
You know, I personally don't, but I'm in favor of, but worm casting, not worms themselves.
Worm.
I do have worms in my garden, but a lot of people do vermiculture, you know, where they have 3 bins and they put their food scraps in the top bin and the worms come up and eat it. And then you harvest from the bottom bin, and that's terrific stuff. I mean, that's really, really high quality, very good stuff.
Also, I grew mushrooms. I did research on mushrooms back 45 years ago, how good they are for the immune system.
Oh, they're so good.
And you can grow them in straw.
Mm.
And we grew, not them, but potatoes in hay bundles.
Oh, yeah.
So,
Yeah, when
okay,
you.
Just one
foxtail,
last
low
question.
calcium,
You had-
high magnesium,
And compacted.
compacted soil. You might
So
wanna-
I just Googled the foxtail question.
Oh.
And you probably have, you could get a soils test, but you probably have high magnesium, compaction, and low calcium.
okay.
So once you get rid of the foxtail, I would do a 8-family cover crop.
Okay, just throw a ton of seeds out
Just
there.
throw a ton of seeds out there.
And Nature Seed, so they're in Utah, but you can buy big, like I love Larner's Seed, but it's a little boutique-y.
And it's expensive.
It is expensive, but the Nature Seed, you can get pretty good size bags, and they have a mix called California Wildflower Mix.
Just do that.
Yeah, and they also have California grasses, which, I mean, if you have an
Uh,
acre,
Yeah.
you can combine them, you know, mix them up and
Yeah,
throw that out there.
Maybe some, the purple needle grass.
Yeah.
Okay, one last question and then.
You had a photo of a gopher like on a string.
Yeah.
How did you do that? Or how do you
It
fight
was
gophers?
it was a cinch trap. So I bought it's a guy in Redwood City who actually makes them. But it's this little trap and it has these two little things and you put it in their hole and when the little gopher puts its head in there,
But when you put it in the hole, you put it on a string,
Yeah.
so you
Yeah.
can pull it out.
And
yeah.
the flag like.
And we do a flag.
Yeah.
Around.
yeah.
Yeah.
Gophers are tricky because you have to like move your trap every 2 hours. I mean, to really do it. Well, you don't have to, but if you want to really eradicate them,
Yeah.
you know, you have to see where the tunnel's going. I just go with a
probe.
yeah, you probe
I mean,
with
could you put a trap like in each tunnel maybe?
Yeah.
yeah, and a gopher, you know, because it's a moon crescent by the hole, and a mole is a mound. Anyway,
It's
just
like
know,
a donut.
Yeah, I know,
Yeah.
they're all over our yards.
Yeah.
I know
Oh.
they look like.
they're good.
That you have gophers.
What's that?
They say to compacted earth, I heard.
I mean, gophers are
They're
good.
everywhere.
They're good in general because they're
Aerators.
aerating your
Yeah.
soil, so they're not a bad thing. But they're eating all if they're eating all your vegetables or all your
Yeah.
plants, then
And your fruit trees.
you have to do something about it.
Yeah.
So can you guys stay a little bit after in case there's any last
Yeah,
questions?
and-
So, yeah, if there's other questions that you have.
Yeah, okay.
Sure. Okay, thanks. I think, yeah. Thank you so much, Lisa and Kathleen, for a great program, and hopefully everybody's ready to go home and start their vegetable gardens. A couple other events that I thought I would mention. Next month, our seminar is going to be on iPhone photography, and yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah. So keep that in mind. And also there's a native garden tour. The local native garden club is having a tour next Saturday and Sunday. So if you Google it, I'm sure you'll find it. Okay, and also if anybody's interested in volunteering, we have lots of opportunities in the nursery, helping us do seminars and workshops, and outreach, whatever. There's lots of things to do here. So if you're interested, you can go online and find out. And yeah, I guess that's about it. Thank you again. Appreciate your great information. And thanks to Kevin and Kara for the technical assistance, and Sue and Francesca are on the education committee. So thanks for coming, and yeah, hope to see you again. Program is now finished.